Okay, Secretary Leons, now let's talk about this. Let's talk about foreign policy. Before we go into visit of Prime Minister Kishida this week, let's talk about Japan, let's talk about Philippines, VFA, from a more progressive standpoint. Because the mainstream discussion, I know what's going to happen. Because after all, Japan also has some baggage. The comfort beam issue, among others, we have to discuss.
Yes.
So, these are things that I hope our Japanese counterparts take into consideration as they push for closer ties with the Philippines. Before going there, pag-usapan natin ito yung ongoing crisis. Now, in defense of, in fairness, I mean, one of the things that impressed me, if not the only thing that has impressed me with Sara Duterte so far, is that she took a principled position in favor of a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, right? Because of the really horrible, catastrophic situation happening, with thousands of children killed. I mean, more than half of the population of Gaza is below 18 years old, based on some of the counts I've seen. So, if the current airstrikes continue, this civilian casualty catastrophe is going to reach unimaginable levels. No, as heinous and unimaginable the crimes were also in October 7 attacks. No, but in fairness to Sara Duterte, in fact, interesting, she ended her intervention with shalom, right? Because she also has Jewish background via her mother, and she visited Jerusalem back in the day together with her father. This is when the Dutertes were really supposedly the dominant force in Philippine politics. But she emphasized, now for the sake of children, for the sake of civilians, we have to have ceasefire. And that was when she was the officer in charge, meaning the de facto president, while BBM was outside the country. But it looks like, that intervention was not necessarily reflected in the final vote of the Philippines in the United Nations, because the Philippines was not few countries. I mean, more than 40 countries voted abstain, but the Philippines did not join the 120 countries, including France, Thailand, and Nepal, which had among the highest foreign national casualties in the October 7 heinous attacks. More than 30 Thais were killed in those attacks. Dozens have been taken hostage. Nepal also, marami namatay. France had the biggest casualty among foreign nationals in the October 7 attacks, heinous attacks. So, and yet they voted for humanitarian ceasefire, because for them, mamaya na yung politika, kasi komplikadong issue yan. Of course, we have to condemn terrorism, we have to condemn attacks against civilians, but also in the same spirit, we have to also try to save children and prevent a catastrophic situation. So, I don't know, can you say that Sara had a more quote-unquote progressive stance on this issue than the BBM administration? Because the person in charge of our UN office is Lagdameo, not a career diplomat, ambassador, and I felt his statement explaining the Philippines' abstention vote was not fully substantiated, because abstention looks like safe, but actually it's not safe when many Muslim countries where millions of Filipinos are residing are very passionately behind this resolution. In fact, this resolution was led by Arab countries together with Brazil, the current president of the United Nations Security Council, our neighbors Indonesia, our neighbors Malaysia, our potential friend in the South China Sea against China. They all feel very passionately about Palestine. So I think if you're not going to join them in calling for a humanitarian ceasefire, medyo mag-effort ka na konti. I mean, of course, hindi naman tayo nag-join dun sa mga Tonga, Marshall Islands, and those kinds of countries that joined the 13 countries who voted against the resolution. But I felt, as a developing country, as a global South leader, supposedly, and the fact that Thailand also voted for ceasefire despite even their more horrible casualties in the heinous October attacks, I just felt we needed more professional and more robust kind of explanation of that. What is your take on this? The Duterte aspect, the BBM appointee aspect, our voting aspect. I mean, as a progressive Filipino, how did you feel about that vote?
Well, una yung kay Sara, no. Ako naman, I'm willing to give credit where credit is due, no. Sana lang ay ganun ang posisyon ni Sara, dahil kabaliktaran yung posisyon ng Marcos government. Sana yun talaga yung kanyang principled position, at hindi lang dahil yun din ang posisyon ng China. No? Dahil ganun din yung nag-unfold na position ng China.
You're right. Can we pause on that? Because China, as I've written, sorry for cutting you there, just to be clear, China is presenting itself right now as the defender of the Palestinian people, as the superpower behind the Muslim countries. Just go on YouTube and look at statements of Wang Yi. He consistently talks about the plight of the Palestinians. Like, if you close your eyes, you would think this is a Norwegian talking, or this is a progressive from Germany, whatever. or a Democrat like Bernie Sanders talking, you open your eyes. Wait, China? Wait, what? Kamustang Xinjiang?
Lalo na pag if you open your eyes sa Urumqi, sa Xinjiang, and you see the 2 million Uyghur in a refugee camp, no? So hindi ko naman sinasabi na mali yung kanilang posisyon.
So you're thinking, Ronald, it's the China connection that explains this principled stance? Because again, good credit. I think China is making the right call, but I'm not sure China is doing it purely based on good intentions, because 50% of their oil comes from Arab Muslim countries. So, you know what I'm saying, right? Diba?
Yes. So, alam naman natin yung cynical politics eh. Kung ito yung posisyon ng iyong kalaban, doon ka sa kabilang posisyon, no? Sana principled, political, ideological yung position. Pero sa labanan ng mga superpowers, duda ako diyan eh. Duda ako. Lalo na kung mayroong certain level of hypocrisy sa sarili mong mga Muslim citizens sa Urumqi at saka sa Xinjiang. Di ba? No? Baka kung bukas pakawalan nila lahat ng mga Uyghur dun sa kanilang concentration camp, baka maniwala ako na ganyan talaga yung kanilang sentiments para sa ating mga Muslim brothers. Pero until that happens, hindi ako sigurado na maniniwala ng basta-basta.
Yeah, the sincerity of this is very questionable. I mean, for me, the impact is real because you have a superpower lining up behind it. Of course, the Russia one is just beyond the pale. I mean, for Putin to talk about protecting civilians' life is just out of this world, right? But for China, kasi mayroon pa silang plausible deniability because they haven't invaded the country yet. The Urumqi situation, they're shrouding it in all sorts of propaganda. They're bringing all of these YouTubers with minders, and the YouTubers go there to Urumqi or Xinjiang and say, oh, everything is perfectly fine. Of course it's perfectly fine because you're guided by this guy to go to the perfectly fine people. Have you bothered to talk to people? And in fact, I saw memes that talk about how everyone cares about what's happening in the Middle East, and then dun sa booth ng Uyghur people, Uyghurs, no, with the flag of East Turkestan, no one is lining up there. So you know, as much as I care so much about what's happening in the Middle East with you know, this recent conflict, I care about the children there. I also care about children in Myanmar. I also care about Afghan children being kicked out of Pakistan. I also care about children in Urumqi and Xinjiang and all of that. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, for me, that's true humanity. That, you know, as much as we want to be balanced in terms of the current crisis in Gaza and all, let's not also forget the plight of other minority groups.
Of course.
Rohingya in Myanmar to
Urumqi. Pero ang usapin kasi yung dito, Richard, is not about scale eh. No? Ang usapin dito ngayon, 24/7, no? Ito yung nakikita mo sa lahat. Social media, you see children being brought out of the rubble eh. Diba? You see a refugee camp. Nakita mo ba yung crater doon? Not even Superman can survive that missile attack, di ba? Ayun, yun yung sinasabi natin. Tapos sasabihin, all of this is done for self-defense. What self-defense are you talking about, di ba? We asked them to leave. They didn't leave. Ibig sabihin, kasalanan pa nung natunaw ng mga biktima dun sa napakalaking bomba na yon. Kasalanan pa nila dahil hindi sila umalis. Saan sila pupunta? Sarado yung buong Gaza, 'di ba? Mismo nga yung mga umaalis na mamatay eh. Ilang pamilya yung namatay na umalis sa lugar nila para pumunta daw sa safe corridor. Patay, 19, no? Isang pamilya ubos. So, yun yung problema rito.
And Ronald, just be clear, no?
Hindi tayo pwedeng mag-abstain.
Yeah, just be clear. So the borders are controlled essentially by 1.5 country, right? Mostly Israel, but also Egypt. But the Rafah border is important because many Palestinians are scared if they leave their homes, go to Sinai. Hindi na sila makabalik, which is something quite familiar to them because 1948, if you look at the whole Nakba discourse, you know, so yung mga nagsabi, kasalanan nila kasi di sila nag-move.
Oo, yun yung sinasabi ng IDF spokesman, di ba? So, tingin ko, ang problema kasama sa collateral damage dito is the US. No?
Which is very isolated. So, isolated
the US. Even within the Democrats, nag-aaway.
Wala talaga.
Actually, yung progressive movement sa Europe, hating-hati. No? Imagine the Labour Party in the UK, which will be the most probably the next government sa UK. No? Hating-hati sila sa issue na ito. Imagine more than 100,000 nag-rally sa London. Malaki yun, for the Palestinians.
Despite the all of these laws against waving the Palestinian flag, which is not the flag of Hamas. This is the flag of the Palestinians, right? Yeah.
away ito within the left progressive movement, no? All over the world, especially in Europe, no? So talagang yung impact nito is more than the size of Gaza. That's 2 million population, no?
In
Ang
a
layo,
very small space,
diba? In
very
a very
small
small
space.
space, no? Malayo yan doon sa mga nangyayari sa Myanmar. Malayo yan sa nangyayari sa Kashmir, di ba? These are huge
Spaces. May
swaths of
gubat,
population,
yeah,
di ba?
exactly.
Pero, no? Pero yung Middle East kasi nasa kaspian ng ating history for a long time, di ba? The Palestinian issue, in spite of its small size, no, dominates yung ating international politics for a long time. Diba? Yan yung
It's biblical. I mean, it's literally a biblical issue, right?
yes,
Except I
yes,
hope people just don't read Bible; they also read actual history about
yes,
what happened in the 7th century. Because Bible
yes,
doesn't cover entire history, right? It doesn't cover
yes.
7th century, 12th century.
Actually, it's a
Yeah.
disservice to those killed by Hamas in Israel. Dahil natatabunan sila eh. Nawawala yung kanilang narrative. Itong mga
Including our
biktima,
kababayans. A lot of
itong
those
biktima ng terrorism ng Hamas,
exactly.
nakakalimutan. Dahil ang
Exactly, ating
nakikita
kababayan.
ngayon are the 4,000 dead children. Diba? The 7 to 8,000 dead civilians. At those huge craters na wala talagang bubuhayin. Yun ngayon ang image eh. Kawawa naman yung mga pinatay, yung minasaker sa Israel ng Hamas. Yun yung pinakamalaking disservice, ironically, ng Israel, no? Doon sa kanilang sariling mga kababayan na namatay doon sa attack ng Hamas.
Ronald, let me ask you this. As a progressive who is very internationally oriented, no? So you have been, following this one of the, let's say, gushing wood of this conflict for quite some time. Do you think there's a change in a global opinion? I mean, because US seems to be very isolated on this issue, no? And you seem to see more and more countries vocally, more and more powerful. I mean, Turkey is not just any other country nowadays, right? Saudi Arabia is a very powerful country. Indonesia is the next potential superpower. All of these countries take a diametrically opposed position on this issue to the United States. And for how long can the United States alone, right, stand by its top ally in the region against all of this opinion, the weight of this opinion, even if they got India and Philippines to kind of abstain in the meantime, but still the weight of international opinion, the weight of sympathy is shifting, or is it not?
Yes. Since the second intifada, no, ay nagsimula nang mawala sa international media, sa international consciousness, yung Palestine. Diba? Lalo na dumadami yung mga Arab states na willing to sign an accord with Israel. Anong nangyari dito sa incident na ito, no? Ay hindi natuloy yung signing ng mga accord na yan with the Arab states, no? Pwede mo sabihin na sabotahe, pero it disappeared, no? It was obliterated, no? Ikalawa, yung US na nagpipivot na papunta sa Asia, away from the Middle East, biglang bumabalik, no? Yung kanilang mga aircraft carrier nandun ngayon, no? Sa Middle East. Nag-aalisa na yan, di ba? Nagpipivot na sila away eh. Ngayon, napabalik sila. At ngayon, araw-araw, no, this small strip of land with 2 million population, ngayon ang nagdo-dominate ng usapan, no? From Uruguay to Greenland, nakagagaling mo lang, no? To everywhere.
I saw many Palestinian flags in Stockholm. I saw many pro-Palestinian graffiti in Copenhagen. So, it doesn't leave. I mean, honestly, when I was in Greenland, because parang desierto siya, di ba? And in the Middle East, actually, it snows. People don't know that. But in northern regions, it snows. It actually reminded me of the Middle East. And so while I was in Greenland, I was thinking all about this and listening to Ezra Klein and the Jewish progressives, Democrats in America talking about. I mean, for me, kasi ang fear ko, Ronald, here is a global culture war of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia going to new heights. And none of these communities feeling safe. I mean, one of the tragedies is one of the first victims of the this latest round of culture wars was a rabbi. Was it in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, who was actually an interfaith advocate for stronger solidarity between Muslims and Jews in America, and she was targeted. I mean, it's just so sad. This anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. It's horrible, and you could see the Biden administration is all over the place, right? One day talking about Israel, the next day talking about Islamophobia and fighting it. Like, you could see they're scrambling. They don't know what to do, because you cannot choose a side anymore, in a sense of where you really have to balance this, because the Islamic world is too powerful to be ignored nowadays.
Tingnan mo kung paano sinasakyan ng mga reactionary forces, no? Like Putin.
Russia, yeah, China, yeah.
Anti-Semitism dun sa Russian airport, di ba? No? It's just a start. It's just a start, no? Kung ipagpapatuloy ang ganyang klaseng genocidal war, those massacres, no? Hindi lang disservice dun sa mga biktima ng Hamas sa Israel nung October 7, no? Kung hindi, itong global anti-Semitism ay mabubuhay uli. No, mabubuhay, no? May justification ngayon itong mga reactionary elements all over the world, sa US, sa Europe.
They're gonna take advantage of this.
Diba? Yan yung reactionary wave na pwedeng sakyan nitong mga populist reactionary elements at yung mga kaaway ng democracy. Sasakyan niya, diba? Sasabihin nila, we were right all along. No, yan ang sasabihin nila, no? Using these victims, using these children, no? Yun yung mangyayari.
Yun nga, I mean, I think there was an attack on the Israeli embassy person in Beijing, if I'm not mistaken, right? And there were a lot of reports of very anti-Semitic statements also circulating on Weibo, the Chinese version of Twitter and Facebook. So this is really worrying where this is going, and we know anti-Semitism is also very strong in countries like Russia, among others. So yeah, I'm worried about this for our Jewish brothers and sisters. I'm worried also for our Muslim brothers and sisters, because this conflict really has, it has a psychological and moral impact like no other, right? Even though this has been around for very long. But now, yeah, you're right. The images of children dying, images of, just scores of civilians being killed here and there. It's just something that it's hard not to see people being moved by it. I mean, just look at the massive protest in Turkey, a NATO member. Look at what Erdogan is saying. I think Bolivia already withdrew their representative from Israel. So it's possible Arab countries that signed the Abrahamic Accords may also reconsider it. United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Jordan, among others. I think Jordan is also signaling that they may do something drastic. I think recalling their envoy also is one of the things being considered as we speak. So wow, this is big. This is big. But
imagine Biden saying na hindi siya naniniwala dun sa mga casualty reports.
Pero nabash ka talaga doon. No?
Diba? Hindi siya imagine Kirby, no, National Security Advisor Kirby saying, di ba, na itong mga
battery ko, please.
Kita mo ba yung statement ni Kirby, National Security Advisor, di ba?
Yeah, there are all of these memes about what they say about Ukraine, and then what they say when it comes to Gaza. Right? There are all sorts of memes like that right now. Yeah.
It looks so cynical, di ba? Itong mga statements nila, no? Itong mga to naman, they are media savvy. Diba?
Yeah.
Bakit nag-deteriorate sila ng ganyang katindi, no? In their speeches, in their presentation, in their justification, no? Parang yung Philippine government, yung kanilang paliwanag do sa atin.
Parang Harry Roque.
It's so phlegmatic.
Harry Roque, right?
Diba? It's so phlegmatic eh. Diba yung dapat ayus-ayusin naman. No? Ayus-ayusin naman, no? Dapat kunin nila yung Richard Hidarian as spokesperson para maipaliwanag naman ng hindi kanyang ka-phlegmatic, yung no, ating abstention, no? Lagyan mo naman ng counting framework, no? Lagyan mo naman ng counting, 'di ba? Nakakahiya eh. Nakakahiya eh pag maririnig mo.
Gusto ni Ronald yan pag nasa UN Nation ako sa New York kami parati yan. Podcast live from New York, right? Next to United Nations.
Gusto ko face to face. No, pag
exactly, kaya nga live tayong dalawa. Ikaw yung consultant namin. Ngayon palang trapon na, no? Di pa trapon na tayo, nagka-consultant na tayo. Thank you so much, Ronald, for this. I think this is just the transition for the last part of our discussion. Medyo bumabawi tayo. Of course, Prime Minister Kishida is now in town. So Japan seems to be also stepping up. In fairness to Japan, in fact, yes, they abstained dito sa latest votes sa ceasefire. But if you look at their initial position, it was quite nuanced. In a sense that we have to condemn acts of terror against civilians, but at the same time we should look at the root causes of problem. We should look at two-piece solutions, so on and so forth. So Japan, unlike the United States, it's not a Western country really, right? I mean, it's considered part of the West, but they are an Asian nation. They understand the sentiment of Asian people. I think they're very much in touch with how we in the non-Caucasian, non-Western world, have very different feelings about things, especially when we feel that a life of a person who doesn't happen to be part of the West is not treated equally, and sometimes far from equally compared to a life. So, and I'm very glad that Senator Bernie Sanders, among others, reminded the President Biden that every life matters. Palestinian life, children's matter just as much as an American life, or just as much as a Jewish life or Israeli life. So this is a civilian life, right? So this is what we're talking about here. Now, what is your sense with Japan? What is the game that Japan is playing? Because Japan is now pushing for a visiting forces agreement with the Philippines to push it up to the next level. But Japan also has skeletons in its own closet, right? I mean, have you been to Yasukuni Shrine and their version of Second World War? Pretty revisionist. No full, apologies in terms of the comfort women situation here. My own grandmother was partly Chinese. I mean, they were very targeted badly back in the day, because in Ilocos region, the hook was very active against Japanese. So my grandmother, she's like 86-year-old. She can still sing the national anthem of Imperial Japan, because she used that to save her parents from being buried alive. That's how brutal the history of Imperial Japan was in this part of the world. Now, of course, they did a lot of good things. They essentially turned into a Hello Kitty, this nice, cuddly cartoon kind of giving you money. But the reality is that once we talk about VFA and security cooperation with Japan, right? The last time they were here militarily, they didn't do very good things, right? But the hope is now with Japan, we can move forward. But moving forward also means that coming to terms, right, with the past, just like Germany, because Germany came to terms with its past, its horrible atrocities against the Jewish people, among other minorities back in the day.
Well, una, Richard, no, Japan is not immune to hubris. Diba? For a while, they're the second richest country in the world. Diba? So it's not lost on them na hindi naman kami basta-basta kahit sino na mag-apologize lang. No? Ikalawa, they're also catering to a section of their population, kahit hindi siya yung majority, very significant. No? They have a nationalist bloc within their population, within their parliament, within their political parties, na pag nakakita ng opening, babanatan din yung gobyerno. So may ganong klaseng silang konting balancing act. No? At ikatlo, umaalis sila dun sa security framework na inimpose sa kanila because of their defeat in World War II. No, na dapat defensive lang, dapat wala kayong offensive capability, etc. So lumalabas sila doon, no? At bahagi niyan ay to walk the talk, no? Na para kaming US, no? Ang US din naman kasi medyo kapos din sa kapos din sa apology dahil superpower ka eh. So medyo
not even recognition. I mean, not even a recognition of the horrible things. The Balangiga was forced on them by the of all people.
Kaya nga hindi nag-member ng ICC ang US eh. Kinakabahan sila baka gamitin din sa kanila ng ICC.
At kinasuan, sinanction nila yung former head of ICC, di ba?
Yes.
Trying to investigate American servicemen engaging in atrocities allegedly. In their foreign operations, I think in the
parang ginawa nilang persona non grata yun eh sa US. So ibig sabihin na i-inculcate din ng Japan yung kanilang main supporter, main ally, who are the Americans, no? Yan yung it could be all of the above eh. No, it could be all of the above. Pero isang pinanggagalingan, Japan is also not immune to hubris, no? Tingin nila sa sarili nila, medyo superior kami.
Yeah, no? You're right.
We are the first among equals sa Asia. 'Di ba? Kaya nga galit na galit sa kanila ang China hanggang ngayon eh. No, dahil ang trato nila sa China hindi pa rin talaga nagbago. Mas sa atin nga mas nagbago pa ng konti eh.
Right.
'Di ba? Dahil welcome sila rito, marami tayong pinadalang mga Pilipino sa kanila, no? Tapos maganda yung trato natin sa kanila, no? Bagamat nung dumating yung emperor sa Malacanang, no, ako ay minister, sabi ko kay Pinoy, boss, buti na lang patay na yung tatay ko, yung tsuhin ko, tsaka lolo ko. Kung hindi, mumurahin ako nung ngayon. Dahil lahat yung mga gerilya eh. Lahat yung mga gerilya, no? So yun yung
hookin sila.
Kaya yun yung lalo na, halimbawa, nung panahon ni Digong, hindi naman lumiit ang projects ng Japan sa Pilipinas eh. Kahit favored ang China. Bakit? Alam ng Japan, mas kabisado nila yung ating system. alam ng Japan, hindi sila pwedeng i-marginalize ng China.
Yeah.
Lalo na puro MOU lang, no? Doon nangyari yung, di ba, yung subway program natin with Japan. Nung panahon ni Digong yan eh. One of the biggest, habang nawala yung mga fast train ng China, natuloy yung subway ng Japan. Bakit? Dahil alam ng Japan how to do it. Alam nila yung ating sistema. Pasikot-sikot ng ating Byzantine system of governance at saka projects.
They have
Kabisado
had a consulate in Davao for 100 years or so. Like, I mean, they know Davao better than you and I, by far.
Yes.
Japan is very
yes.
well informed about the nuances of Philippines. I'm very impressed by their
Kaya halimbawa, galit si Digong sa US, hindi siya galit kay Abe. Diba? Hindi siya galit sa Japan, no? Halos ka-level ng China and Japan noong panahon ni Digong.
Yeah.
Ibig sabihin, that must be something. Diba?
So Japan is our all-weather friend, right? I mean,
yes.
Right? I mean, Digong, Japan. Aquino, Japan. BBM, Japan, right? Like, I think they're the only major power because they are a major power. They don't act like one because they don't have the kind of a swashbuckling offensive military capability that many or at least offensive military mobilization that many countries can do because of their pacifist constitution. But even that is changing, right? Because Japan is realizing hindi ka pwede umasa sa Amerika for long. And speaking of hindi ka pwede umasa sa Amerika, pag-usapan natin ito, Ronald, no? Because I think I'm among very few people who keeps on coming back to this issue. We in the Philippines should care about what's happening in the Middle East for many reasons, of course, on a moral basis. Also because we are worrying about a greater conflict if this spreads beyond. You already see Houthis, for instance, from Yemen trying to get involved. Hezbollah is already looking at its next move from southern Lebanon towards what's happening in Gaza. But the other one is, you know, the US is asking for tens of billions of dollars for Ukraine and Israel. And there's just so much that the US can do. I mean, I doubt the US can effectively fight three major wars in three theaters simultaneously.
Yes.
So if God forbid invasion of Taiwan happens, or in South China Sea something goes very bad and crazy, I don't know, a US that is active in Ukraine against Russia, in the Middle East against enemies of Israel, and here so for me, yun nga, if titignan mo United States for a very long time, even if they wanted to pivot to Asia, parati sila binabalik. Di ba yung sinabi ni Don Corleone dun sa third part, just when I thought I was out of it, they brought me back into it. Di ba? Yung last part na gusto na mag-retire, yung Don Corleone, just when I thought, they dragged me back into it. Diba?
Bagay na bagay sa iyo ang mafiosi, ha?
Di ba?
Mo, ha?
Wala. Di ba? So Ronald, I was telling you.
Ronaldo.
I was telling you. Yeah. No, so ako kasi kanina I was looking at the numbers. It's crazy. You know, Pakistan gets $1 billion a year from US before. Like it got more than 30 billion pounds in less than half a century. Jordan in 2014 alone got $1 billion in military aid. Israel got more than $300 billion since its founding. Ukraine got $46.7 billion last year alone. And the Philippines got, since 2015, since Pinoy, $1 billion. So, what's going on here? Ang kalaban natin, pinakamalakas na bansa aside from US, right?
Wala ka kasing Jewish lobby.
Mahina tayo sa lobby.
No? Wala kang Jewish lobby. Imaginein mo, anong gagawin ng Israel dito sa military aid na ito? Ang dami na nilang military hardware, no? They're the strongest military sa Middle East, di ba? Ang liit-liit ng kanilang populasyon. You can only hold two guns at the same time, no? Anong kunin mo rito? Natalo ka nga sa Intifada, ang kalaban mo lang mga tirador, di ba? Mga slingshot na mga bata.
And so diba? Ukraine also
asymmetrical warfare, di ba? So, unless ubusin mo yung Gaza, no? Ubusin mo lahat ng bomba mo diyan, i-wipe out mo yung 2 milyon, unless yun ang objective mo. Ano yung pupuntuhan ng US? No? More missiles to destroy refugee camps, to kill children? Hindi ko maintindihan, no?
So Ronald,
Israel has more than enough. No, it has more than enough. no?
So Rona, if your argument, and of course, there's also the Ukraine aspect with Russia. It's effectively a deadlock, right? I don't know how the Ukrainians are gonna pierce through etong defensive position. Russians were horrible invasion, but they're much better in defensive position. Scorched earth tactic. They did that to Napoleon. They did that to Hitler. So they're pretty good in that defensive, aggressive, scorched earth position. Now, the thing is, we have 5 million Filipinos in US, right? Or at least 4 million, right? Like. So why is the Filipino lobby so weak, right? I mean, knowing how many
because Filipinos are more Americans than the Americans. Ha?
Right.
Nakikita mo yung mga flag sa mga PhilAm sa kwan eh.
Diba? Ang laki ng US flag.
Yung mga Amerikano walang flag eh. Diba? Tayo may mga flag eh. In a way, tama rin naman yung little brown Americans. Napakaraming Pilipino are more loyal doon sa bansa na pinuntahan nila. Diba tayo bakasyunan eh, no? Tayo bakasyunan. No, tayo ay balot, tayo ay dinuguan, no? Tayo ay cultural eh. Pero in terms of
tayo ay Manny Pacquiao.
You're right. Ang daming Pinoy ang Republicans, ha? There are more Pinoys who are in the Republican Party than in the Democrats, no? Imagine mo na anti-immigrant itong partidong ito. Tapos napakaraming Pinoy yung nandyan. Diba?
Because we don't want immigrants.
Kaya ayoko pupunta ng US din. Nakikipag-away lang ako sa mga kamag-anak ko eh. No, dun sa kaya di ba they're more Americans than the Americans. No? Nasobrahan tayo
Republican version of American. I think if they were more Democrat, progressive, Bernie Sanders.
Baka maunawaan mo pa, di ba?
Yeah. But
it's very conservative, ha? Yung 5 million na Pilipino sa US.
Right.
No? Very conservative.
Marami dyan. And a lot of them work in the military, like my uncles, etc. No, so it also it explains you. But I just want to talk about this, no. Kasi the joke I always get is pag dalawang Pilipino, tatlong organisasyon ang lumalabas dyan sa US. Sobrang talagang barangay level yung politics.
Ko yan first hand, no? Yung Masbateño Association sa New Jersey. Pag natalo ka as president, magbubuo ka ng sarili mo, no? So sa New Jersey, merong 90 Masbateño associations. Pag natalo kang tumakbo,
Masbate lang yan, ha? Masbate.
Masbate pa lang yan, ha? No? Yan yung reality natin, no? Paano yung yung mga expats, yung mga migrants, yung mga migrants natin, yan yung kanilang diyan sila nabubuhay eh. Diyan sa mga associations na yan, no? Kung pupunta ako sa mga ganyan, sa mga associations, no, weekend, reunions, no? Pagalingan yan, pabaguhan ng kotse, no, ng mga appliances, no? Walang pag-uusapan ng katulad ng pinag-uusapan dito kay Richard Zaidarian, no? Walang ganito, no? Puro pinag-uusapan diyan talagang ano yung bagong bili ng iyong credit card. It's really a credit card society, no? It's really about
Alaki na SUV.
Maganda na Tesla. No? It's all outlets,
correct.
No?
Maganda na Tesla.
Saan mas mura ang outlet, no? Yung ganun, no? Wala. Hindi pag-uusapan dito yung direction of the wind blow. Hindi dito pag-uusapan yung kwan, no?
Magsalamat ako sa tito ka doon sa Adidas S1. Ako malapit na naman. Ikaw, baka naman.
Updated ako dyan. Pag nasa Amerika ako, ano ba yung latest Nike shoe? Updated ako dyan. Anong gadgets? No? Anong mga bagong gadgets? No? Yung mga sunglasses na merong video. No?
Ray-Ban na may camera.
Yan yung mga pinag-uusapan. At saka Pornhub.
Sa Pornhub, pero marami na ng Fox News. I think mga Pinoy ang pinakamaraming Asian American Fox News.
Kaya kahit marami akong kamag-anak sa US, no, I would rarely go there.
Pero yun nga, that frustrates me because I've been in touch with the Filipino American community. I have many good friends there in DC, Washington DC, who have been active, in pushing for Philippine
meron naman.
Pero yun nga parang considering 5 million almost Filipinos dyan and second generation, and laki ng population, my own cousins, etc. I was expecting the Philippines to be at least as organized. Tingnan mo yung Indians, for instance, right? Maraming mga Indians in the US are super successful, right? Look at the big tech companies, lahat. Indian American, Google pa lang, all the way. But they're also very active pushing for support for India, even if marami sa kanila ayaw kay Modi. So even if they may not like Modi, kasi yun yung parang digong version ng India, sasabihin nila, hindi, this is about India, pushing India to be the next superpower. So very active yung Indian American community. And interestingly, Filipino Americans are among the wealthiest foreign-born immigrant. I mean, mataas ang average income ng mga Filipinos. So hindi naman sila yun nga, it's really priority and coherence and unification, right? Yun ang kulang talaga. And you're right about the tribalism. I remember every time I go to Hawaii, pag nasa taxi ako or Uber, I speak Ilocano. Because if you speak Filipino to the driver na alam mong Pinoy, hindi sila pero once you go Ilocano, then suddenly there's camaraderie. Ay, kapsa, kapanak di jay, ganyan. So you doon pala nakikita mo, they rather say I'm Ilocano than I'm Filipino. If this is in Hawaii, because of of course, the history of Ilocanos working there back in the day in the plantations and all. So I completely agree with what you're saying. But because it's not like Indians are not divided too, diba? Sobrang diverse ang India. But somehow they kind of got it together. So I'm hoping the Filipino American lobby will be more coherent, more active in pushing for more assistance to the Philippines. Kasi kailangan talaga natin i-develop yung ating sandatahang lakas. And we cannot do it with our taxpayers' monies alone kasi napupunta sa confidential fund, sa Maharlika fund, sa barangay election fund. Limitado lang makukuha talaga ng sandatahang lakas natin. So we really need support from our allies.
Lalo na ngayon, di ba? Lalo na ngayon,
exactly.
Na napaka-intense ng issues sa South China Sea, sa West Philippine Sea. Bakit hindi tayo makakuha ng kahit man lang isa o dalawang state of the art, no? The latest battleships, no? Bakit hindi tayo bakit mga bulok pa rin yung nakukuha natin? Napakahalaga ngayon natin sa kanila, no? So the Americans should put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, kahit sana Jordan, Pakistan level
Hindi,
na.
baka magmukha silang parang China, puro MOU, puro commitments, no? Kailangan pa na. Not next month, but last month. Diba? Dapat gawin na nila yan, no? Tingin ko naman willing silang gawin, no? Pero dapat na kailangan may push din eh. Tayo kasi masyado tayong parang okay na yan, di ba? No, masaya na tayo diyan, no? Yung mabait naman sila eh, di ba? Ganun, pinapahalagahan naman tayo nung pumunta tayo sa Pentagon, di ba? No?
May 18 gun salute.
di ba? Parang okay na tayo ron eh.
Okay na yan. Pwede na yan. Okay na yan.
Pero where's the beef? No? Where's the beef? No, dapat makita yan ngayon, no? Yan yung dapat sabihin mo sa mga sa mga international trips. Where's the beef? No?
Where's the money? Where is the money? Where is the money? Nako, Ronald, nagalit ko yung mga kasama natin. Sabi, bakit? Ano naman, binibili namin rubber shoes and all kasi pinapakaw namin, may mga natamaan. I mean, Ronald was talking about the general culture na it's not as politically oriented. But in fairness naman, Ronald, pansin ko na in recent years when I go to the US, mas pinag-usapan namin West Philippine Sea, no? Dahil sa latest elections, mas pinag-usapan yung elections sa Philippines. Of course, because of my Ilocano background, obviously Marcoses will keep on popping up. But there are also many pro-Lenny supporters na I meet na Filipino American. So I'm slightly more optimistic now na dahil dito sa West Philippine Sea issue, medyo lumalakas yung sense of, yes, Amerikano na tayo, nandito na tayo, pero Pilipinas, yung ating original na country, or country of origin, ito po ay may pangangailangan, no? And actually a few months ago, I heard that, and I met some of them, no? Filipino American soldiers saying they're willing to fight the war if it comes down to the war. Now, they are volunteering to be part of the expeditionary forces just in case, because of course, ngayon, Pentagon is preparing already for a war with China, diba? It can happen any moment. So actually daw, yung mga Pinoy, atat sila talagang, this is second generation na itong mga Pinoy, parents pa, they want to fight for the Philippines, their country.
Kaya nga sinasabi ko, Richard,
there's not attachment
Hindi ko naman sinasabi na hindi ko nila lahat. Halimbawa, meron akong dalawang
nagbibiro lang tayo na, but
meron akong dalawang podcast sa US twice a month.
Wow.
No? So twice a month yan, kami. Talagang meron din naman talagang section na very political, very ideological, no? Kahit hindi sila pa ganun karami. Sana lang itong tribe ito ay lumawak, no? Halimbawa, before, no, yung si Miss Kimpo, no, isang sister ni Nathan Kimpo na pumanaw na. Meron siyang mga PhilAm youth na pinibigyan ko ng seminar every year. Tapos nagbo-volunteer dito dahil ito yung mga third generation na naghahanap ng roots at naghahanap na wala na silang
Exactly.
problema sa resources sa
Identity.
sa finances. So naghahanap sila sa paano ba sila makakatulong. Binibigyan ko to ng seminar every year, no? Minsan twice a year pa. Tapos nagbo-volunteer dito, no? Yan yung mga kabataan, no? Third generation na naghahanap ng
Yeah.
political relevance, no? At gustong balikan yung kanilang bansa, no?
Yeah.
Ito yung mga may future. Yung iba kasi masyado na na-integrate no?
Yeah.
Medyo nag-suffer na rin yung kanilang link sa atin Nagiging bakasyonan na lang tayo. Pero
Ron,
maganda yung sinabi mo na baka meron pa na willing
yes,
ipaglaban,
yes.
no? Sabi ng kanta, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. Diba? Sana yung bayang magiliw na yan, no, ay nasa puso pa ng maraming Philam.
Yes,
No?
ako naman Ronald, again because siguro dun sa pamilya ko marami sa kanila sa military na napansin ko, etong issue ng West Philippine Sea is kindling a kind of a fire that perhaps was not there before. Kasi for a long time we were in America's shadow, security umbrella, archipelagic country, hiwalay tayo. Pero ngayon kasi real na yung prospect ng Chinese invasion sa Taiwan, sa West Philippines, posible mangyari yan. So I think that's changing the dynamics very much,
Yeah.
no? And I
Saka
think
nakaka-insulto, binabastos na tayo Tama naman yung
exactly.
sinabi ni Secretary Gibo, no? Na binabastos na tayo, no? Tayo pa ang may kasalanan sa environmental destruction ng mga corals, no?
Gaslighting na.
Tayo pa ang
Strategic
nagraram
gaslighting.
sa bigger navy ng China. Tayo nagraram. Tayo bumubunggo, 'di ba? Yung parang in your face, parang sobra naman, 'di ba? Sobra naman. Kaya kahit hindi ako usually sumusuporta sa mga tao sa gobyerno, in this case, sinusuportahan ko yung kanilang mga statements,
Right.
no? Pero na lang yung mga tao sa gobyerno na nung nasa gobyerno sila ni Digong, wala silang ginawa kundi tumahimik, no? No, yung ngayon meron kang dating DILG secretary, no? Na ngayon ay very anti-China, no? Dahil nung panahon ni Digong, tumakbo pa siya sa Senate slate ni Digong, no? Tapos hindi siya na-appoint for 5 years, 6 years. Wala siyang sinabi tungkol sa pro-China policy ni Digong. Wala siyang sinabi sa libo-libong namatay sa EJK. Tapos ngayon, born again Democrat na naman siya. Born
Yeah,
again
marami tayong mga
nationalist.
ganyan.
No?
Oo.
Naririnig mo ba na mo ba kung sino yung pinapatamaan ko?
Actually,
No?
marami yata sila. Alam ko, isa
Diba?
lang. Pero actually, marami ako naisip na awkward.
Yan,
I
yan.
even talk to some of these people.
Naiinit ang ulo ko pag
Yeah,
nakikita
yeah.
ko.
Nakakapiko. No, we should call them out. We should call them out.
Mm.
Patama lang tayo. Lalo yung mga nagsasayaw ng ganyan sa China Asia Games, yung mga ganalo, yung mga ganyan, mga Asia Games, West Philippine
Hindi,
Sea.
pero si Bongo, nakita mo ba yung statement niya last week? Bumanat sa harassment ng China. Di ba? Pero nakalimutan niya, nakasama siya ni Digong na pumunta sa China nung kausap si Xi Jinping. Hindi niya
Organized lang naman daw siya. Organized lang. Malapit na kasing election sa biglang people are
medyo, no?
finding their sense of
Medyo. Hindi ko sinasabi na ginagawa niya ito dahil re-electionist siya.
Oo
Wala siya
naman, oo naman. Mahal naman talaga niya ng bayan natin. Yun lang, maganda rin yung timing kasi. No, dahil marami nangyari sa West Philippines. And then, I mean, for me, Ronald, no, Ronaldo. For me, one reason is the West Philippine Sea, which makes me optimistic about the Filipino American community, more solidarity. But the other one for me talaga, lalo nung after nag-file tayo ng arbitration case, as in lumalaban talaga yung mga Pinoy natin, mga kaibigan. I mean, they know who I'm referring to. Lumaban talaga sa China kasi yung Chinese ambassador, binubuli niya talaga yung mga Filipino na talagang gagawin namin kayong Syria. Sabi nung isa sa akin na ginanon daw sila nung Chinese ambassador dun sa mga think tanks sa Washington DC and all. But the other reason is because nagkasabay si Trump and Digong at some point, di ba? And biglang napaisip niyo ba, wait lang. Punta akong Pilipinas, may Digong. Magstay ako sa Amerika, may Trump. Something is going on here, right?
Pero kang Bolsonaro sa Brazil.
No, but I mean, I'm just talking about yung mga Filipino Americans, how they felt, coming from two countries with similar history or shared history in that case, and then ganun. So I think because of that, many became also very active. So I know many people who are very active in the US now, contributing to progressive movement, but also very big Lenny fans. And in fact, a lot of our leading, supporters, sila Ma'am Jocelyn, si Ma'am Eden Olona, marami sa mga followers natin dito. These are Filipino Americans who are very active in pushing
Sana next year, Richard, election na naman, di ba? Election na naman. Sana naman mabawasan yung mga Filipino Americans na boboto kay Trump.
Pero alam mo, fear ko is not that more will vote for Trump. My fear is many will not vote for Biden anymore. The Muslim Americans, a lot of them are angry. I can see a lot of
Yes.
my academic friends na Turkish, Arab
Biden
American.
is
They're not gonna
36%
vote for him.
now, no?
They're not gonna vote for him
36%
daw.
ang baba, di ba?
Yeah, matatalo siya not because Trump will get more vote, but it looks like Biden is gonna lose because he's gonna lose a lot of Muslim American votes, and also a lot of progressive Americans are very, very disappointed about turn of events.
Yes.
And a lot of people think maybe Biden should rest na. Now you need someone else, except they have no one else. Kamala Harris, no offense, but I don't think so. So yeah, I think a Trump presidency is more and more possible as we look at things. But let's see. Hopefully things will happen better. But thank you very much again, Secretary Ronald Llamas. Hindi pa naman 2 hours, pero na-appreciate ko ito.
Anytime, Mr. Green
Voluntary
Letter,
service.
no? Anytime, Mr. Human Trafficker, no?
Yeah, dahil talaga. Ito talaga si Mr. AK-47. Mr. Axe Grinder, Mr. Arrow Man, Golden Horde. Yeah.
Siyempre, no, naghahanda ako sa isang invasion.
So let's catch up soon. Pag-usapan natin, of course, yung outcome of visit ni Prime Minister Kishida. There's so much more to discuss, and balikan natin itong Bardagulan, Tamboloslos episodes because we have to watch. Diba sabi mo, Ronald? Let's watch what will really happen in the final version of the budget because hindi pa tapos ang usapan. You never know, there could be a kind of a final ASEAN caring, sharing deals cut there.
Tignan mo may mga billboard sa EDSA, di mo ba nakita? Pink.
Ay, actually, yeah.
Pink letters, no? Nakalagay, no? Nakalagay, no? Ceasefire in Gaza, no? Stop the bombing in Gaza. Stop murdering children, no? Malabas. No?
Larissa ba yan?
Mga billboards sa EDSA. Ikaw talagang tagal mo na wala Pink ha? Tapos sa ilalim, may nakalagay, sending love hashtag. No, may nakalagay sa ilalim.
Ano yan?
Padala ko sa'yo.
Item?
Nakita ko lang naman. Papadala ko sa'yo. So,
sige. Pag-usapan natin mga yan.
Kahit napaka-phlegmatic ng ating paliwanag sa ating abstention votes, no? Merong mga more active na mga hashtags sa billboards. No?
Sige. Check ko, Ronald. Basta baka mamaya may billboard ka rin ng sarili mong ini-endorse dyan.
Wala.
Next thing I know, diba? Ronald, ano na? Thank you very much. Grazie.
Ronaldo
Ricardo. R&R na pala, Ronaldo and Ricardo. Para tayo mga football players. Thank you very much, Secretary Llamas. Hope to catch up with you weekend or early next week. Sorry kung napagod ka, but I really appreciate you giving us time to discuss a whole...
Kaya ako sa slave labor.
Yes. Thank you very much. Mamaya ka na mag-drama naman. Thank you so much. God bless.
Sige, thank you.